here a little bit.
All right, I'm here, everybody, on PWP Nation once again with Drake Younger. You might know him as Drake Wuertz, former WWE referee, and dare I say, the absolute best referee, and I'm not kissing ass, the best referee in NXT, without a shadow of a doubt, man. Drake, what's up? Thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay. I appreciate it, brother. Very blessed to be here, man.
Awesome, dude. Now, look, man, I do wrestling, and I've also opened up the conversation to other topics over the past year or so. And that's because we are in the middle of a global crisis, the global pandemic. Medical tyranny is what I'm calling it recently, because it seems like the goalpost just keeps getting moved back. And before we dive deep into the waters when it comes to that, I want to talk to you a little bit about your life after WWE and kind of the road you're going to take. Now, many people consider your job a dream job, and for you, it likely was. But talk to me a little bit about that process of having that dream job in place, being the best referee that company had, and now you're out of the company and you're moving on to new ventures. Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, and it absolutely was my quote unquote, like you said, dream job. I worked for nearly 20 years in the professional wrestling industry. 12 years on the independents, 7 years in WWE, and was able to do it at the highest levels. Refereed at WrestleMania multiple times in front of 80,000 people. Triple H, Kurt Angle, Ronda Rousey, Stephanie McMahon. Superdome, like, it doesn't get any higher. So I absolutely, for lack of a better term, made it, and nothing can ever take that away. Incredible run. You got to check all the boxes, do everything that I ever wanted to do there. But somewhere along the way, I found that, yes, that was my dream job, but I have more to contribute in life, and more to contribute to the kingdom of God. As a Christian man, as a man of faith, I started to get, called in different directions to where I saw things that were just much more outside of just this, hey, we're in this pro wrestling bubble. So, my life after WWE, it hasn't been very long. It's been about a month or so. But, the Lord just put so many opportunities on my plate. And it was funny, before WWE and I departed ways, I had made plans to run an independent wrestling show in my personal capacity, just promote it and be behind the scenes to benefit victims of human trafficking. That's a fight that my wife and I have been involved in quite a while, for a little over a year, actually. And so something very near and dear to our heart. And we live in Florida, which is third in the nation for rates of human trafficking. And it doesn't get talked about a lot. You talked about suppression. It gets suppressed. The algorithms on social media will just shut it out, and kind of veering off a little bit here, but I'll get back on course. But, I can post like a gym selfie or something, and it'll get a whole lot of interaction. But if I post anything about, just questioning COVID, or post anything about human trafficking, or the unborn child, protecting the unborn child, anything like that, it gets very minimal traction. These algorithms, it gets suppressed a lot. So I wanted to use my platform in pro wrestling to be able to raise money for victims of human trafficking here in Central Florida through the Bikers Against Trafficking organization. And so I'd already set that in place. But whenever I parted ways with WWE, the first day that I was allowed to quote unquote perform on something outside of WWE was on June 26th, which was the day that I had already set to promote that show. And so I was like, wow, what better way to have my first match as a wrestler in over 7 years than to do it for such a great cause. So it's incredible the way it worked out. So that's, the handcuffs are off. I'm able to fight those battles and be at the forefront without any kind of corporate structure holding me back or anything of the sort like that. Also diving into, civilian life a little bit, learning some trades, going to classes, doing some other things. And then I have some exciting projects as well on the horizon, getting very involved locally in the political scene with the local Republican Party. A lot of people, they'll sit online and complain a lot about what's going on, but really, unless you roll up your sleeve, the best way of course of action is rolling up your sleeves and getting in the game and getting involved.
Yeah, getting to work and contributing whatever way you can. And I can
Yep.
hear the positivity and I can hear the conviction in your voice when you're talking about these issues. And that's something that not a lot of people have. Like it almost feels like when I go to my day job, and I don't mind my day job, don't mind me. I'm on
Yeah.
vacation this week, so I got a little bit of freedom. You know, I don't have that same kind of passion as I can hear you talking about your new ventures. So this process is brand new, as you stated. Now, what's the future hold? Now, you say you're working on a local level and whatnot. Are you planning on this being your career moving forward, or are you still going to continue to try to chase that professional wrestling dream in some way, shape, or form, some capacity, and try to keep that as almost like a full-time gig moving into the future?
Jay, professional wrestling would definitely not be full time for me any longer. I don't foresee that happening. You know, because I made it. You can't go any higher than that. Now, in regards to pro wrestling, I do seek to be still involved and be able to contribute to the business and give back, because look, I was able to learn so much over the past 7 years. In the ring, yes, but more so outside of the ring on the production level when it comes to television timing and just the structure of a match and telling the story of a wrestling television show. So there are I have been contacted by some companies. I'm taking some bookings, pardon me, here and there, but I definitely don't want to go back to the, traveling to multiple states every single week and being away from my kids all that time and just chasing the grind, because I did that. You've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. I want to do it when it's right for me, when it's convenient for me. And to be honest, a lot of the independents aren't the same as whenever I left them, several years ago. The majority of the independent scene has been infiltrated by this woke cancel culture supremacy, where if you have any kind of opposing opinion, then you get blackballed and blacklisted, or, and the thing is, when I broke into the business in the early 2000s, whatever you believed, whatever you felt, that got left at the door. When you came to work, you did good business, you tore the house down, you made sure the person you were working with was safe, you got them home to their family in the same condition that when they left, then you went on to the next town, and that's what it was. But now everybody, you either follow the narrative or you get pushed away and canceled. So I'm going to do it when it works for me, with promoters that are willing to do business with me, that don't care about the nonsense and the garbage going on out there on the internet. So that's where I'm at with wrestling. Now, I'm also going to be jumping. This is the first place I've announced it, actually. I'm going to be jumping into the podcast realm as well, hopefully toward the end of the summer, beginning of the fall. I'm going to talk some wrestling. I'm going to talk faith. I'm going to talk family. I'm going to talk politics. We're going to bring it all together and just kind of be a voice for those out there that think that just because you're a conservative or just because you're a Trump supporter, that you don't have a voice and you can't speak out about issues. So that's where I'm going to bring to that platform. And then, like I said, some work in local municipalities that I'm doing. Being more so not running for office, but supporting the frontline fighters, the true patriots, the bold new conservatives, kind of that MAGA party of guys that are not willing to push back against the establishment.
I love that, man. I love that. And that's funny that you kind of brought up the past year. You've been kind of diving into a lot of these topics that maybe you hadn't been privy to over your entire life. Maybe these are some issues that you haven't vocalized your thoughts about for your entire life, and now everything's starting to come to the forefront, because these conversations, believe it or not, as much as they're being suppressed, they're really being opened up on a lower scale, and that scale needs to be broadened. And I'm a perfect example, man, that we don't know each other that well at all. And the fact of the matter is, I've been like a liberal Democrat for my entire adult life, pretty much, up until the past year and a half or so, where my mind started to open up, especially through the global price crisis and some other podcasts and open forum chats that I had listened to kind of open my mind a little bit. Now I'm wide open. Like I'll listen to all sides. Every idea doesn't matter. Now, one thing that I'm really passionate about as well is this human trafficking situation. And I had on my channel a few months ago a woman named Sabrina Lopez, who has an organization called Girls Speak Out. She was a victim of human trafficking in her teens for many years, and she was lucky enough, and I use the word lucky loosely, to be released by her captor. And now she's living a life, and she's trying to take on the same kind of responsibilities you are. So tell me a little bit more about this human trafficking conversation, because I'm a rookie when it comes to this conversation, man. So tell me a little bit about it more from your perspective, some of the numbers you're hearing, and how, what we can do to actually fight this on a ground level, on this low scale that I'm on right now.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, because the issue of human trafficking or child sex trafficking, that should not be a divisive party lines thing whatsoever. That should just, everybody should be all on board for fighting that. But it's funny, a lot of people, the moment that you mention it, they label you as like a QAnon conspiracy theorist or something like that, and which is not the case whatsoever. Yes, there are those people out there that have those far wide theories, but that only just hurts the mission of fighting sex trafficking and just brings negative attention. So, you automatically get lumped into that category. But hey, throw the bullets at me. I don't care. I'm willing to take them, because this is an issue that needs to be talked about. As I said, here in Florida, we're third in the nation. Texas and California are the top two. And I always had this, misconception that human trafficking was like out of the movie Taken with Liam Neeson. Like, that's how human trafficking was. You get literally kidnapped, physically taken, sold on the black market, at the border, all these semi trucks with, hundreds of people inside. That's what I thought human trafficking was. But then whenever I, took some training and took some classes, you don't even have to leave your house to be trafficked. Any kind of coercion or fraud or force for somebody against their will to perform an act of either labor or sex is an act of trafficking. So, for instance, you can a 65-year-old man can pose as a teenage person on TikTok and coerce coerce a teen to send them a picture, an inappropriate nude picture, and then exploit them to be able to fraud them to getting that picture out, selling that image, that abusive image of them. Lo and behold, it's an old man on a computer at home in the rural Florida or somewhere like that. Right. You know what I mean? It happens, unfortunately, all the time. Here in Florida, we have a large agricultural community and huge tourist attractions, a couple major airports right around here. So we're privy to that action happening a lot here. So, and I love what you talked about the young lady that was on your podcast, because, we've been pretty good on legislation as far as punishing the traffickers and predators. But there's not a lot pouring into the aftercare or the rehabilitation of those that were caught in that life, because you've had your innocence taken. You've coming out of that. Sure, your captor, your predator, your trafficker might have been locked away, but now you have to rebuild your life, and you have to become a normal, productive member of society with all that trauma behind you. So that's why I really support groups like Operation Underground Railroad. They help a lot with aftercare, and then they do a lot of funding for law enforcement offices that might have budgetary shortfalls. So you can find out more about them, and you can take a Know the Signs of Trafficking course for absolutely free at ourrescue.org. And then an organization here in Central Florida that has chapters all across the country, Bikers Against Trafficking. They're on the grounds, and they're not just talking about it, they're on the grounds helping victims that have, like your friend that was on your show, that were in that lifestyle, getting them trauma counseling, and getting them job assistance to get them back into society, giving them help that they need, a hand up to escape the life that they were in. And that's bikersagainsttrafficking.org. It's a bunch of like big bag motorcycle dudes and girls that are just out there fighting human trafficking. So it's pretty cool, man. So, but yeah, take those online courses. They're like 45 minutes. You can save your progress, and you can really get an in-depth education on what it looks like to fight human trafficking.
I love it. I love it. That's amazing. Now, there's another. I just want to shout out this real quick. There are sting operations out there where people are actually, and they put their shows online where they're trying to like catch predators. Literally, it's a catch a predator type vibe. And this is
Mhm.
another place where human trafficking starts on these dating apps and whatnot. So a shout
Yep.
out to CC Unit who does it out in California. That kid has caught hundreds of predators, so to speak. And
Yep.
yeah, and these kind of organizations are amazing as well. And look, like to pivot a little bit off of this topic, but to still kind of tie it into the political climate right now in this country. Happy 4th of July, by the way, to a great patriot in
Yes.
yourself. And
And
I saw you. I saw pictures of you at the Trump rally the other night.
oh yeah.
Florida. So now this is a situation where we're looking at the alignments of the political party over the political parties have kind of realigned, I would say, over the past, couple of decades, 20 years or so. There's been almost a natural evolution in some of these major topics and whatnot. Whereas like you would think the Democrats and the liberals would be on board to fight against human trafficking, to fight the human the suffering, I should say, just overall suffering that takes place at the border in a lot
Mhm.
of ways that the mainstream media doesn't talk about. So being at the Trump rally and feeling that energy and seeing how many people were there and listening to the man talk, what is the goal here, you think, long term for the Republican Party and the Make America Great Again kind of initiative? Do you think they're going to fight more in an open forum for fighting human trafficking and cutting off the pain and suffering at the border?
Well, yeah, President Trump mentioned that in his speech, and he went 90 minutes. I mean, he spoke his heart out in that speech. But he did speak about that quite a bit. I mean, look, the Epic Times put out a report just about a week and a half ago or so that the reports of human smuggling, trafficking at the border are up 542%. I mean, that's an actual number that they use. I mean, it is rampant down there. There are groups of veterans in Arizona and Texas. You know, Texas is getting a lot of the attention, but it's happening crazy in Arizona as well, in Pima County. I mean, there are traffickers crossing the border at exponential rate. You know, coyotes dumping kids. It is absolutely awful, and it should not scare everybody, but everybody should want to have, that crisis fixed. And under the Trump administration, say what you will about the man, but he had that mitigated at the lowest level that it's ever been. And that's one of the big reasons that I came to support the Trump administration was the fight against human trafficking. January 2020, he put forth a $400 million executive order to fight human trafficking. He declared war on the MS-13s, one of the most heinous groups that do awful and horrible things to children. Just this past August, partnered with the Tim Tebow Foundation to put forth $35 million for victims of human trafficking and to get them back on their life and the aftercare. Everybody just focuses on his mean tweets and his hair and his spray tan, but his administration did a lot of good for humanitarian efforts. But the future of the Republican Party and the MAGA movement, President Trump's speech was great, absolutely. But what I got a lot of joy and hope out of was the other speakers that spoke that day that maybe might not have gotten a lot of coverage, like Congressman Byron Donalds out of Florida. Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert was there. It's this new conservative movement of just you're almost everyday people that are jumping into office and fighting for the causes that are important, and not afraid to stand up to the establishment and most importantly, what they're doing is they're calling out like these old school country club Republicans, weak knee, that just bow to any corporate interest. We got to get them out of there. We got to replace them. That's almost worse than like your far left Bernie Sanders people, because at least they're out there about what they're about. Like these rhinos, they run on being like conservative Tea Party patriots, but when they get up in office, you know what I mean, they just bow to the establishment. So we got to get this new wave of conservative fighters in there to fulfill the Trump legacy. Governor Ron DeSantis has done an incredible job here in Florida. I know everybody's like, oh, he should run for president. No, we need him here in Florida. We saw how important strong governors are in the past year with all the COVID nonsense. The states created the federal government. The federal government did not create the states. So we need strong state sovereignty that will be able to defy the federal tyranny that comes placed upon their state whenever that situation calls upon it. So, there's hope for 2022. Election reform has to take place. But man, there is hope. It was so great to be out there amongst 40,000 people. There was almost a monsoon of torrential downpour. Nobody left. We were just out there in the rain. Incredible fireworks display afterwards. It was just welcoming and exciting. If you've never been to a Trump rally, even if you're not on the right, if you're a libertarian, whatever it may be, man, I invite you to just go. It is the most welcoming, fun party atmosphere that you'll ever be a part of.
I got to go to one. I'm up here in New Jersey. We're the most liberal state in the freaking country now, man. But the county I live in is not, dude. The county I live in is not a liberal county. And again, like I said, I grew up a liberal. I was kind of like, I would just watch.
Me too. I grew up as a Democrat pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever the comedians would say, Bill Maher, or whatever, like Chris Rock was, I would just listen to those guys, Jon Stewart. I would listen to them and I'd be like, okay, this must be the truth. They're funny. They're doing it in an entertaining way. They must. And I never thought about what could possibly be the truth and what wasn't. And this is a great conversation because you're kind of like giving me these different rabbit holes to go down to and continue learning about these organizations and how to help. And that's really what I want to do. I want to put the focus on helping. And that brings me to, my last question, because I hope we could have more of these conversations in the future, especially as you open up your podcast and more topics become available. But I don't want to take up too much of your time today, Drake. I do again appreciate this. I'm grateful. And one thing that the initiative that I put forward when I started this podcast is try to give people help with their personal life in any way, shape, or form, because we all have struggles, man. We all have struggles that we don't talk about in public. We all have struggles that we do talk about in public, but actually are afraid to ask for help in. And I want to ask your advice to anybody out there that is looking to take their life to the next level, to succeed, to kind of move forward and get past whatever is holding them back and bothering them. And this is advice for me as well. And again, for everyone out there, can you give some practical real life advice that anyone can use from your experiences, not only in the professional wrestling business as an accomplished wrestler, because a lot of fans today have no idea what you did on the indie scene, man. And I was there at a couple of those CZW events back in the day when I was a kid, and I watched some of that crazy shit you did, bro. And let me just say something, mad respect to all of that. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. So much respect. But again, back to this practical advice to anybody out there that's listening to this, that understands that might not understand, the struggles and the trials and tribulations that you've been through in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's incredible. I really appreciate the kind words. The 8 years that I spent at CZW, I'm incredibly proud of the work that I put in there. For those of you out there that are just looking for practical advice, whether it be in wrestling or in life or in the political sphere, whatever it may be, Lord willing, this year I'll be celebrating 10 years clean and sober. I was caught in the depths of addiction, at the bottom of the bottom for so long, and I put on this shell outside that I was incredibly happy, but I wasn't. I was a slave to the drugs. But once I surrendered and realized that I can't stop doing drugs on my own. When I surrendered and put up that white flag, that was the best thing that I could have done, because then that allowed me to seek the help that I needed. And eventually that help that I needed was a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And that has allowed me to grow into the man that I am. I'm married to a beautiful woman. We have 3 incredible children. We have a home here in Florida, and, I made it to WWE, succeeded. And so what I can just say is just, the best advice I can give, find that relationship with Jesus Christ. If you're not open to doing that, hey, it's fine. It's a free country. We have morality. You have a moral standard that you live up to, but that has been the best thing for me, having that relationship with Jesus Christ. And you know what? I'm not your cookie cutter Christian. You know what I mean? We're all fallen. We are fallible men. We fall short of the glory of God each and every single day. But that is the moral compass that I live by. Surround yourself with a group of people that will lift you up and encourage you, no matter what, circle of life that you're in. There are people that I thought I was friends with for 15, 20 years. But just because I'm a Trump supporter and a Christian, and a conservative, they've said the worst things about me on the internet. And you know what? That's fine. It doesn't matter. I know who I answer to. I answer my Heavenly Father. I'm accountable to my family. And just the most practical thing I do is just work your butt off each and every single day. Whatever that looks like for you, just work your butt off, outwork everybody else. I'm up at 3:45 every morning, coffee, Bible, and I'm in the gym. No matter what, because if you get in shape, stay in shape, you'll never have to get back in shape. So that's why I was able to just transition back into wrestling after refereeing for 7 years. So a lot of times you're gonna have to sacrifice sleep. You're gonna might sacrifice time away from your family, but work your butt off. Surround yourself with good people, and I highly suggest finding that personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And lastly, if you are a conservative, if you're a patriot, don't listen to this woke cancel culture, man. Stand up to it, push back. There was a lot of benefits from being in a corporate structure, but I tell you what, the freedom that I have from not having to follow some narrative that I don't agree with, man, I'm blessed. I'm happier than ever. I'm excited for the future, man. And all the stuff that people say about me online, pay no attention to it, man, because I'm on a path forward, and I know that's what I got in front of me. So I'm incredibly grateful to be here, man. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Drake, thank you. I'm grateful. That was amazing advice, man. That hit me hard, dude. I got goosebumps and chills listening to you talk about your experiences. So thank you so much.
Speaking of New Jersey, real quick, a couple of weeks ago at the Health and Freedom Conference in Tampa, I met the owner of the gym in Belmar that defied the governor there, who kicked the door. He faced all these millions of dollars.
Ian Smith, right? Ian Smith.
Ian Smith, yes, incredible guy, man. What a patriot, what a brother. And I hear that like his gym, he doesn't charge a fee. He has donations. But man, that's the kind of like leadership that we need. Those that will defy the tyrants and have that proper civil disobedience whenever it's needed. Because if you don't stand for something or stand for freedom, man, you're going to fall for everything. So guys like that are needed, man. That was incredible, especially in a state like New Jersey, that he had the guts and the courage to just stand up and say, hey, I'm not going to close down my gym for a virus that has a 99% survival rate. This is the healthiest place in this city. So come on in. You know what I mean? Like that was awesome.
And not only that, I followed that story super closely. That's a little bit north of me, but not one, when they were doing contact tracing and they were really on top of this thing, not one case was tied back to his gym. Not one.
None. Yep. Absolutely, man. Yeah. It's incredible.
Well, dude, enjoy your Monday. Once again, thank you so much for doing this, Drake. And I hope we can do this again in the future because this conversation is ever evolving. And I want to continue to open it up to more and more people throughout the coming years and months. So thank you once again.
Thank you, brother. God bless you. If you're a wrestling fan, please visit prowrestlingtees.com/Drake Younger. Got some classic old school deathmatch shirts on there for the old school fans. Thanks for having me on, Jay. God bless you, brother.
You got it. God bless, Drake. Take care.
Sweet.